Most high-income earners focus on more income. Very few actually stop to look and see what their life costs to run. Today, I'm opening up our real books, not to prove that one place is better, but to show you how different structures have very different trade-offs. And after I show you the savings, I'm gonna get really honest. There was one part of this move that almost sent us back to the States. In wealth management, we talk a lot about return on investment. But today, I'm going to talk to you about return on structure. If your structure feels overwhelming, something's got to give. There are a few things that you can do to optimize your life, but they all come with very different price tags. Here are the line-by-line numbers with the line-by-line trade-offs that made this move make sense for us. Let's start with housing because this is usually the biggest line item. Our 3-bedroom home in Missouri was about $1,500 a month for the mortgage. Here in Kopp, we rent a 3-bedroom place for $800. That difference adds up quickly over a year, and the view is just as nice. However, there are also many trade-offs. I don't have a Target 5 minutes away. I can't order something on Amazon and have it at my door the next day. I have one mall, but not 5 to choose from. Also, the intermittent power, water, and gas outages. If any of that sounds like a no-go for you, this structural shift would definitely not be for you. Food is another place this difference shows up. Here in Kopp, my husband goes to the local market and buys fresh, local basics for much less. The gain here is fresh, local food at a much lower cost. However, the trade-off is variety. If I want a very specific American brand, it might be super expensive, or I might not even be able to get it. But when I can get fresh squeezed orange juice, for us, it's worth the trade. The next line item is what most people don't actually put on their budget. In Missouri, we spent 10 to 15 hours a week just cooking, cleaning, and keeping the house running. It was basically a second job after our 9 to 5. Here, we pay to share the labor. I didn't get a raise, but I did get my evenings back. I don't really see a trade-off here. This is hands down for me one of the life-changing variables that I would literally take every single time. Healthcare is also a good example about how different systems feel. A month after we moved here, one of my kids needed stitches. It was an unfortunate head-to-rock incident, but thankfully it wasn't serious. In the US, it would have been co-pays or deductibles, health insurance premiums, or a lot of waiting. Here, we walked into the clinic, got the care, and paid $68 in cash. The benefit was simplicity and affordability. Dental care in places like Guatemala is also well known for a significantly more affordable option. And something like routine care works very good as well. However, the trade-off could be really big here if there was some kind of medical issue that came up. We don't have a big network of specialists for those complex situations. This might be a bigger trade-off. The next is the retiree math. My parents moved here with us and their experience is different too. They were financially fine where they lived in the States. Nothing was broken, but here their day-to-day expenses are significantly lower. Because of that, most of their monthly spending is covered by Social Security income alone. They're not drawing heavily from their retirement savings for everyday life. That margin feels very different in retirement. Now, that doesn't mean everything is cheaper. Traveling, visiting family, seeing the grandkids, all of that still adds up. But it shows how lowering the day-to-day costs can make retirement feel very different, even if the total annual spending evens out. For some retirees, that trade-off would be really appealing. For others, it might not be. I'm also just talking about Guatemala because we live here, but there are many other countries that welcome expats and have regulations and rules that make that transition an easier process. If you have any specific questions about life in Guatemala or what my parents are experiencing, feel free to drop them in the comments below and I'll make sure those get answered. Okay, now for the part that most people don't talk about. About 6 months in, this almost didn't work. The honeymoon phase was over. All the little things here and there started to add up and we didn't know if it was worth it anymore. Believe it or not, there's no mail here. You have to have couriers or actually go pick up something that someone sends you. Outside of the capital city, there are no big box stores. So no Home Depot, no Walmart. Banking is super clunky and outdated. Anything administratively takes hours or honestly even days. You have to have a lot more patience and it requires way more effort. For example, paying for our kid's school bill. We can't transfer the money to pay that bill unless we're at the same bank. And because we're not, we literally have to go to an ATM, pull out the cash, go to the bank, give them a code, and pay our bill there. Things like that, that's normal here. What almost sent us back wasn't the cost of living. It was comparison. Comparing how fast things moved, comparing how systems worked, comparing how easier everything felt back in the States. If you compare systems, the US wins hands down. It's efficient, it's predictable, it's built for speed and convenience. If speed, convenience, and a frictionless system are a non-negotiable for you, this definitely would not work. And that's okay. And had we continued comparing Guatemala to the US on those terms, it wouldn't work for us either. What had to change wasn't the place, it was the lens in which we saw it. Once we stopped asking, why isn't this like the States? And started asking, what does this give us that we didn't have before? The move finally clicked. We accepted that slower systems, fewer options, less convenience were part of the trade. It was the cost of calmer days, shared time, and less pressure. And for our family, once we stopped comparing, the trade made sense. The point of this isn't that everybody should move out of the US. The point is that structure has a cost. And if your life feels like you're absorbing everything that you earn, it's worth looking at. And in the next video, I'm going to show you how these trade-offs can actually change a retirement timeline and the two biggest risks that you have to keep in mind if you ever change your structure like we did. Check it out in the video on your screen.